All right, moving on from our bell work. Marine reptiles are the first thing we're going to talk about, class Reptilia. They evolved from amphibians of all creatures. They lay their leathery eggs on land. Now we're talking about marine, not terrestrial, so they're in the water most of the time, then they go up on shore to lay their eggs. They are ectotherms, that means they are cold-blooded, so they tend to be found only in warmer regions. For example, the leatherback sea turtle, you're only going to find them where these lines end. You're not going to find them up here where it's cold or down here where it's cold. Only in the tropics, okay? Sea turtles in general, they have a shell that's fused to their backbone. They cannot retreat their head into their shell like terrestrial turtles can. And their legs are modified into flippers. They have claws on the ends of their legs, oftentimes for digging in the sand to bury their eggs, but that's about it as far as walking goes. They can only push themselves up on shore, only to lay eggs, just like this. So they'll leave these marks. If you see these marks on the beach, this is what caused them. Sea turtle mama came up shore, digs with her flippers, deposits the eggs, just like this. They look like little ping pong balls, but they're leathery, they're not hard. If you threw one on the ground, it would go splat, it wouldn't bounce. And then she crawls back into the sea after she's done. They don't have any teeth, they only have a biting jaw. So this is the upper jaw, and the lower jaw is missing, so that would be the lower jaw there. It's like a beak, like a bird's beak. And they migrate very long distances. There are 8 species in total. 4 of them make their home here in Florida. But here with the Sargasso Sea, the only sea without a coast, right? And so we know that this gyre not only serves to circulate water and wash up Sargasso seaweed on Florida shore, but it also allows the turtles to make their migratory routes. So green turtles are the first one we're going to talk about. They live again like in tropical waters. We knew that already. Their shells grow up to 1 meter in length. That's about this long. So, and they feed on seagrasses and seaweeds. They are herbivores. The green sea turtle. Then there's the hawksbill. They have that pronounced sharp beak on the end. Smaller than the green turtle. Their shell is reddish brown. This shell has been prized for many years for making jewelry and bowls and other things like that. Of course, in other countries, not anymore because they're endangered. They feed on encrusting animals, sponges, sea squirts, and barnacles. That's why they have to have that sharp beak to scrape those animals off of their surfaces. And seaweed. So they are omnivores. They eat both animals and plants, or photosynthetic organisms. Seaweeds are on plants, remember? Macrophytes, algae. The leatherback sea turtle, largest sea turtle in the world, largest reptile in the world. They can be 2 meters in length. That's like 7 feet, okay? No solid shell, that's why they have the name leatherback. Only a series of small bones buried in the skin, forming distinct longitudinal ridges, and you can see them here and here. All right. Open water, very deep diving. They feed on jellyfish, but they also include sea urchins, squid, shrimp, fish in general, blue-green algae, and floating seaweed. That's why plastic bags are extremely hazardous for these organisms, for these turtles, because a plastic bag floating in the water looks like a sea turtle, a jellyfish to a sea turtle. So many of them are found with plastic in their stomachs. And then there's the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, the most endangered of all sea turtles. And here's a size, the typical size of them. They're putting a satellite tracking device on its back. And you can see how they look very different. They look a little bit more as their head like land turtles do than they do, or freshwater turtles they do than sea turtles. So here are the ones we mentioned: the green, leatherback, hawksbill, Kemp's Ridley, loggerhead. And these are their relative sizes. that we just discussed. Of course, the leatherback being the largest, Kemp's Ridley being the smallest. All right, sea turtle biology. So females will dig that big hole like we saw in that previous video using both pairs of flippers, and they lay about 100 to 160 eggs in that hole. Then they bury them up again and return to sea. Now, she may make several trips and return back and forth, okay? So the sex of the offspring is determined by their temperature in the hole that the female, the mother, dug, okay? Top is warmer, and that's where the females will develop. The bottom of the sand is cooler, and that's where the males will develop. And to remember it, you think cool dudes, hot babes. That's how you're going to remember the difference, okay? And in about 60 days, 2 months later, the eggs will hatch. Sea snakes, highly venomous, 55 species, but thank goodness none of them live here in Florida. They live in the Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean. They have a flattened body and a paddle-shaped tail. So here's the head, and the tail is paddle-shaped for swimming because these guys live in the ocean. Coral reef areas typically. About 1 to 1.3 meters long they get. Ovoviviparous, first time or second time you've actually heard this. First time was with the sharks. So therefore they are totally marine. They don't have to go up on shore to lay eggs. Carnivorous, they feed on fish and fish eggs, and they're closely related to cobras. Hence the high venomous nature of these. Other marine reptiles, you have the marine iguanas. We have lots of iguanas here in South Florida. These are their cousins. They somehow, a population of land iguanas blew over or got floated over to the Galapagos Islands. And this is where these marine iguanas live. And they feed primarily on algae on the rocks in the water. They will swim down and hold on with their claws and just bite algae, seaweed, off the rocks. And the salt that they develop from being in the water, they sneeze out of their nose. So when you'll see these guys basking in the sun on the rocks, and they'll sneeze, that all this white stuff is salt that's sprayed out and landed on them and dried. Saltwater crocodile. Yes, we have these here in Florida. They love estuaries, mangrove swamps. They're different species. We have the American crocodile here in Florida. You can see its range is growing. It used to only be down here in the Everglades, but we have them up in Palm Beach County, all the way up into almost to Volusia County up here. So, and all the way up into Tampa Bay, all through the Keys and the Glades. They're more aggressive. They're the most aggressive of all marine animals, more aggressive than an alligator, which is not marine. Alligators are freshwater. And they could be huge, up to 10 meters long, but not as massive as the leatherback sea turtle. Here's one that was a picture taken in North Palm Beach at a golf course. And you can always tell a crocodile from an alligator because the crocodile has a narrower snout, and you can see their teeth sticking out more than an alligator. Seabirds, we're moving on to seabirds. They spend a significant time of life at sea, but they nest on land, obviously. They are endotherms. Remember, that means warm-blooded, okay? Homeotherms, that means that their body is regulating their temperature. So it can be cold out, but our internal temperature is still warm, just like us. Most of them have waterproof feathers. They have an oil gland near their tail. And when you see a bird using its beak to clean its feathers, it's more than just cleaning them, it's rubbing that oil from the oil gland on its feathers. Here's a great blue heron doing that right now. That's where the oil gland is, back there. Penguin. About 260 different species of marine saltwater birds. Most are predators of fish, squid, and bottom invertebrates like worms, snails, clams, things like that, oysters. Here's a tern, and here's a puffin. First time I got to see puffins was in Alaska. And you see this one's tagged so they can keep track of them. Penguins, the most fully adapted bird to life at sea. When they're in the water, they're virtually fish because they can swim just like a fish because of their flippers, okay? Those streamlined bodies. They have bones that are heavier for buoyancy. They're adapted for cold temperatures. We know they have this layer of fat beneath their beneath their feathers. They're not fur, they're not mammals. They're birds, okay? And very dense waterproof feathers. This is baby emperor penguins in Antarctica, huddling together for warmth. There's about 18 species, not about exactly that we know of 18 species. They all live in the Antarctic region. No penguins live north, naturally, in zoos they do, live north of the equator. So whenever you see commercials of like polar bears and penguins together, they live in completely different parts of the world. It's a lie, okay? And the Galapagos penguin lives right on the equator. So that's the closest one. Tube noses, tube-like nostrils. You can see them here and here, okay? Heavy beaks curved at the tip for catching fish. Near the surface, here's a shearwater and a storm petrel. These birds only see land when they nest. They may spend months or even years out on the open sea. First time I ever saw one of these was on that NOAA vessel that I served on when we're out in the ocean. And they have salt glands. That's what the tube nose is for. Skillful flyers. Albatross, longest wingspan of any seabird, but they're also called goonie birds because they don't do very well when it comes to landing and walking on land. They're beautifully graceful flyers, but on the land, not so good. Pelicans and allies. Allies just means relatives, okay? They have webbing between their 4 toes, just like this, and they often nest in very large colonies. This white stuff on the rocks is guano. That's bird poop. Highly nitrogenous and mined in many places around the world for fertilizer. Pelicans specifically, they have that pouched beak that we're all familiar with. We have them around South Florida. Just keep your eyes open by the beach or by the intercoastal area and you will see pelicans. And of course they plunge into the water to catch it. I don't know why this is so blinky, but you can see this one plunging and catching a fish, okay? Diving in to the water. Cormorants. Cormorants also have a curved beak. Black, long-necked seabirds that dive and pursue their prey. They fly very low over the water typically, and they float in the water like this because they don't have oil glands. These birds swim for their prey underwater. If they have oil glands, oil is lighter than water and it would make them float. And so that's why after they're done fishing, they will oftentimes be seen with this out in the sunlight, drying their wings and before flying, because it would take more energy to fly when wet. Frigate birds, one of my favorite birds. These guys are, it's called a magnificent frigate, this species here. That's a male with the big red pouch that he uses to attract females. They have very narrow wings and a forked tail. They soar along the coast. And they oftentimes, they will force other birds to drop their food, and then they will take the food from them. And they very rarely enter the water. The feathers are not waterproof, so they could also spend years out at sea without even touching water or land, just gliding along. Seagulls and their allies. So gulls are the largest variety of seabirds. They are predators and scavengers. So that's why you always find seagulls at dumps, at landfills, okay? they'll eat something dead on the floor. You know, they'll steal your sandwich out of your hand at the beach, okay? But they're also predators. They will also hunt all of those invertebrates that we see, that you find on sandy shores and muddy shores. Any shore, really. Here's a laughing gull. You can tell because they have that black head. Ring-billed gull. They have an actual ring, black ring around their beak. Terns are a little smaller than seagulls, and you will often see these guys diving for their food in the water. Very quickly, they'll go down and dive. Okay, it's very slender beaks to catch very small fish. The Arctic tern has one of the longest migratory flights of any bird in the world. They will go from north all the way south on the planet every year, thousands of miles. That's why you should never, if you see birds on the beach or in a field or in a parking lot, like in a group resting, you should never let your dog chase after them, let children chase after them, or you do anything, because maybe they just landed after flying hundreds, if not thousands of miles. This is the first land that they saw, and they stopped, and they're trying to rest, and then you scare them up. You might kill some of them. So you never scare up resting birds. You walk around them. Walk very slowly around them. Puffins, we mentioned before, cold water, diving birds. They have very heavy beaks to catch fish in. And they nest in colonies on rocks and in rock crevices. Tufted puffins. There's a couple different species of puffins. And then other random shore birds that I chose for this area, particularly wading birds like the great white heron or the great blue heron. You've got ducks of all kinds, including the very famous green-headed mallard duck, different kinds of plovers, sandpipers, sanderlings. There's so many different ones. I could teach a whole course on just birds, but this is all the time we have in this class, okay? And there's my favorite, the sanderling. I actually have a Facebook page, sanderlings, okay? There's little guys that run up and down the shore from the waves, chasing little invertebrates. All right, part 3, marine mammals. Here we go. They evolved from reptiles, okay? Not dinosaurs. About 200 million years ago. And there's a whole series of whale evolution from a fox or coyote type of animal from a very long time ago that actually evolved into the modern day whales that we know of. And there's lots of evidence for this. They're endotherms, again, they're warm-blooded because they're mammals. Viviparous, we know what that means. Vive, life. Viva means live birth. They are placental, which also defines them as a mammal. And mammary glands, that's where the word mammal comes from, to produce milk, okay? So here's my favorite, humpback whale, just born, and the mama is helping the baby take its first breath at the surface. Has to teach the baby, this is where you go for air, up here, okay? And that's a nursing orca whale. Different types of marine mammals. We've got seals, sea lions, and walruses. They're called the pinnipeds, order Pinnipedia. They evolved from terrestrial order Carnivora, which includes the cats, dogs, and bears. That's why when you look at seal's teeth, they look very similar to a wolf, okay? They're predators, of course, and they have a thick layer of fatty skin called blubber. Many cold water marine organisms have that. Insulation, food reserve, and buoyancy, because it's fat. Fats and oils and waxes are less dense than water, so they float. They are used oftentimes by natives up north as a food source as well. And this is what the blubber actually looks like. And it's pretty gross, but. Seals, the largest group of pinnipeds. Here are some examples: harbor seal, elephant seal, female and male. Okay, there's 19 species of seals. They have what defines the difference. One of the differences between a sea lion and a seal is that seals have these rear flippers that they cannot move forward and walk on. They have to kind of be like a slug when they're going over the land, okay? Largest pinniped is the elephant seal. Males are the largest. Seals have been hunted and still are today for their skin, meat, and oil. Here is a sealer getting ready to beat a baby seal to death. Yes, it's terrible. Doesn't really need to be done anymore. And yet, this is the aftermath. So they harvest the meat, oil from the blubber, and the fur and I can see if they're natives, like the native Inuit, and indigenous people. But for the most part, this is just done for the tradition, and it shouldn't really be done as much as it used to be, because they're endangered. So the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, I was 2 years old when this happened, offers protection to all marine mammals and restricts the sale of their products in the U.S., which helps protect them. Sea lions, these are the eared seals. Another reason that they're separated is they actually have ears. The other ones did not. I mean, they have ears, but they're flat against their head. They can still hear. These just have little flaps. And their rear flippers can move forward so they can walk like this. Okay? And they're very agile swimmers. The males are larger than the females, hence the term, and the furry manes, hence the term sea lion. And there are 5 species and 9 species of related fur seals. This is the Steller's sea lion. Here's a fur seal, and you can see how they get their name. Okay? Big long whiskers, very sharp teeth. You do not go near these animals if you ever go to California or north and on this coast, east coast of the United States, Canada. Don't approach them. California sea lions especially are aggressive when it comes to territory and food. If you've got fish, they want that fish. The walrus feed on bottom invertebrates like clams. Their tusks, as popular misconception would show you, tusks are not for feeding. They are for defending territory from other males. Okay? And you'll see scars on their bodies from fights that they've had with others over territory, over females. Sea otter. Saw one of these, a few of these for the first time a couple of years ago, and I went to Alaska. Order Carnivora. The average male weighs about 25 to 35 kilograms. They don't have blubber. What they do have is the thickest fur of any mammal in the world. Any mammal in the world. Densest, thickest fur. They're very loving of their babies, caring of their babies, okay? And they will use rocks to crack the abalone shells that I showed you. One of their favorite foods is the abalone, right here. That mother of pearl in there. They'll crack these open to get to the meat with a rock. And then oftentimes they'll pass on their favorite rock to their offspring, which is pretty amazing. They eat about 8-9 kilograms of food every single day, and they live in those kelp forests. That's where their food is. Here's his cracking open an abalone with a rock. And here's some of their favorite foods: abalone, mussels, clams, sea urchins, crabs, fish. Very sharp. Carnivora. That's the skeleton of one. Hunted to near extinction until the international agreement in 1911. No, I was not born alive at that time. Protected them. And so their historical range is all this area. Their current range is the yellow areas only. So they were probably hunted development of coastlines pushed them away. Plus maybe even climate change made the water too warm down here, so they moved up. Manatees and dugongs, also called sea cows or sirenians, There used to be more species, but they were hunted. Only 4 remain. The one we have here is the Florida manatee. They do have blubber. They're the only vegetarians of marine mammals. So they eat seagrasses and things like that. They can be 600 kilograms in weight or in mass. That's 1,300 pounds in weight. They've been hunted, like I said, for meat, skin, and oil-rich blubber. In 1893, Florida state law made it illegal to hunt manatees because they were being decimated. Whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Order Cetacea, or the cetaceans. If you were going to study these in college, you would be a cetacean biologist. Here are some, and they have a dorsal fin. Most of them have a dorsal fin. The most adapted mammal to sea life. Muscular tail ends in a fluke, horizontal. Fish have fins like tail like this. Sharks, think about, right? But dolphins and whales, there is turned so it's like this, okay? And they're called flukes. They have blubber. They have a little bit of like whiskery hair, perhaps around their head. Face, very hard to find though, but mostly hair is absent from them. Here's a right whale's face or mouth, okay? Here's a orca whale hunting a stingray. It's pretty cool. There's the flukes. They use the flukes to tell the differences between the whales. Nostrils or blowhole are located on the head. One blowhole in toothed whales, like dolphins and sperm whales and things like that. And then 2 blowholes, like us, 2 nostrils for baleen whales. Baleen whales are toothless whales that filter feed. We'll talk more about that. So there's about 90 species. Some of them are highly endangered, like the Irrawaddy dolphin in this part of Southeast Asia and Australia, okay? Pink dolphins from Hong Kong and the Amazon River. Very odd looking dolphins, but five of them are freshwater. These are some of the freshwater dolphins here. All of them are endangered. All dolphins around the world are endangered. So the first ones we're going to talk about are baleen whales. They have rows of flexible fibrous plates called baleen. It looks like a comb, right, for your hair. So that's how you can remember that this is literally hair. It's made out of keratin, the same thing that your hair and your nails are made out of. So they will open their mouth like this over Antarctic krill or other small invertebrates or small fish, and they will close their mouth. Their throat is only like this. They can't swallow you. Their throat's very small in comparison to the size of their mouth. And then they will squeeze out the water, filtering it through this baleen, and all the material, all the food will be left, and then they use their tongue to lick it off and then swallow it. So, and here's one coming up. Real video of one swallowing a bunch of small fish. This whole area down here, the ventral grooves will expand, and then they'll push the water out, swallowing all the critters behind. Largest animals to ever live on Earth. The blue whale is the largest species to ever live on Earth that we know of. Males average 25 meters long and weigh about 100,000 kilograms. This one is in University of California, Santa Cruz. So we've got the blue whale, the fin whale, the minke whale, and the humpback whale. They're called rorquals, meaning they feed by gulping up schools of fish and swarms of krill. Baleen whales. Often certain species of whales will corral their prey using something called a bubble net. Once the fish and krill are in a tight collection, they will gulp. So they swim up like this, blowing out bubbles as they swim up. And then when they get to the top, they'll have corralled or gathered all of the little fish because the fish are afraid of the bubbles, so they stay inside that circle, and then they'll come up and then gulp at the surface. It's pretty cool how they fish. Bubble nets. Toothed whales, there's about 80 species. Like sharks, they have teeth that are used for catching and holding prey, but their teeth are conical. They're not serrated and flat like a shark's tooth. They're conical, like a cone. Here's some Pacific right-sided dolphin, Atlantic bottlenose dolphin we have here in Florida. That's an orca whale skull. The largest toothed whale is the sperm whale. It's the most numerous of the great whales. Here's a mama and a baby. This is one that got washed up on the shore, and you can see the teeth, very thin lower jaw. These are the guys that hunt those giant squid. A pod is a group of whales swimming together, or dolphins. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time there. Biology of marine mammals, swimming and diving. They have streamlined bodies, obviously. They're not going to be cube-shaped. Pinnipeds use flippers as paddles. The sirenians and cetaceans move their flukes up and down in the water to swim. And the pinnipeds have claws on the end of their flippers. Examples of speed. This is really cool. So sea lions could be about 22 miles per hour. Blue and orca whales, 30 miles per hour. And common dolphins can swim about 40 miles per hour. Faster than many fishing boats. They take very quick breaths to avoid inhaling water. A fin whale empties and refills its lungs in less than 2 seconds. You can hear it from really far away. You'll hear really fast. And then you'll get that whale breath that comes out. Even though it breathes 3,000 times more air than us, it takes that really fast. It's in and out when they hit the surface, and then they'll go back down again. These guys are taking breaths when they leap out of the water. And they can make prolonged dives at considerable depths. So here we've got a sea otter, 4 to 5 minutes. Elephant seal, 1,500 feet deep, so they can hold their breath for quite a long time. A Weddell seal can hold their breath for an hour because they go under the ice. Baleen whales can go about 300 feet. Sperm whales for over an hour because that's where they hunt their giant squid, right? Pinnipeds for about 30 minutes. Dolphins can go almost 1,000 feet below the surface. Marine mammals use 90% of the oxygen in their lungs, where humans only use about 20%. So here, look at the size of the bronchial passage of a humpback's lung. It's huge volumes of air, okay? And marine mammals never get the bends or nitrogen bubbles, nitrogen's narcosis, in their blood due to decompressions because their lungs actually collapse, whereas ours would be under pressure. That keeps the air from dissolving into the bloodstream. And so they never get the bends. They can go up and down in deep water. Many of the species use echolocation. It's a natural version of sonar. It's where we learned our sonar technology from. And they emit waves from this, what's called a melon on their head in clicks. And it bounces off of their prey, so they can see in very turbid water, very cloudy water, or at night. It's also how they communicate. No vocal cords. It's all from the melon, right here in their head. So it focuses and directs the sound waves. It gives these whales their characteristic rounded foreheads. It's called a melon. You don't have to copy that, I don't think. Do you? I don't think so. Huge forehead of the sperm whale is filled with something called spermaceti. That's where they get their name from. It's a waxy oil, and they think it's used to actually knock out the squid when they're hunting. They will shoot sonic waves out of their melon and stun the squid, so it's easier to eat and attack. Used to be collected to make candles and lubricants back in the day. Sperm whales can produce powerful sounds, like I said, to stun their prey. These are all the squid beaks found in the sperm whale's stomach, if you remember. And these are scars from their battles with the giant squid. So sucker scars. Highly social. Pinnipeds live in huge breeding colonies. They use vocalizations or sounds for communication. Particular sounds are emitted during breeding, feeding, alarms, and birth. Humpback whales are the ones that can produce the sound that travels the farthest. And they'll sing songs, humpback whale songs. They're quite beautiful. Notorious for play behavior. Playing with food or floating objects. Dolphins will ride the surf of a boat. It's called bow riding. Cetaceans will often leap out of the water, and it's called breaching. And they'll do this for many reasons, oftentimes just for play. But they'll also do it to dislodge parasites or barnacles that are living on them. They may sometimes strand and beach themselves, sometimes by the dozens. They'll refuse to move and they'll die due to collapsing of internal organs. And it's uncertain as to the reason for this very strange behavior, but nonetheless, they do it anyway. We don't quite know why. They will make great seasonal migration, sometimes thousands of miles, for feeding purposes and for breeding purposes. Humpbacks will go from Hawaii to Alaska all the time. And then reproducing. They do have an internal penis and testes, keeps their body streamlined. Okay, in cetaceans, the penis will extrude through the genital slit before copulation, and this is actually right whale mating. One will flip upside down. Okay, so they're mammals. They have babies just like many other mammals that you're familiar with. Pinnipeds mate on land or on ice. Elephant seals will have harems of females, up to 50, and they fight other males for their territory. Only the strongest ones have harems. The weaker males, they form these things called bachelor groups, and much of their time sneaking into harems to try to reproduce with them and pass on their genetic, to the next genes to the next generation. And so what is the biological significance of this behavior, which I just kind of told you the answer to? So make sure you get that in your notes. Okay, and finally, our last slide. Gestation is about 11 to 12 months in most cetaceans. A baby blue whale can be born around 3 tons. They feed on milk, obviously. We told that already. Calves can gain 200 pounds per day in the first 7 months. Wow. And then they reach sexual maturity at around 5 to 10 years old in most of the great whales. So that is our notes.